Thank you very much. Bikash, is that my official welcome? Is it time for me to get started?
Absolutely, Doc. You are very much welcome.
Okay, good. You can all hear me fine, I hope, yes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now Bikash, I'm going to share my screen
Okay.
so that everyone can see this talk. It looks good?
Absolutely great, Doc.
Okay. Now, Bikash, are you translating for me?
I am doing that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for attending this meeting. It is easy that we can all attend from our own homes or offices. I am very pleased to be involved with UNICITY, and I am delighted to take some time with you to talk about metabolic health. Now, as you know, UNICITY is so committed to science that they have put together a very strong and very noteworthy advisory board. Now, let's go through them all. I want you all to appreciate just who UNICITY has brought together. Dr. Bhaskaran is the director of the Center for Applied Nutrition Services at a university, a very good university in Singapore. And her scientific expertise is looking at how the body responds to foods, how the glucose levels change when we eat food. And she also has studied extensively the role of fiber in the diet. Now, we also are very pleased to have Dr. Stuart Phillips from Canada on our Science Advisory Board. And Dr. Phillips is one of the most well-known experts around the world on dietary protein. And a lot of what he has studied is looking at how the body will take in protein from the diet and then use it to build the muscles and the bones. And then we also are very lucky to have a physician, Dr. Ted Naiman. And Dr. Naiman is unique. He's the only one who's not a scientist, but we welcome his medical perspective. And then finally, we have Dr. Bikman, me. And I am actually at my university right now in my office, and just across my hallway is the Metabolism Research Lab that I'm in charge of. And my professional focus has been for the last 20 years, and hopefully 20 more, to try to understand how the body becomes obese and diabetic. Now, UNICITY has brought this team together because we all together are pushing the limits of applying what we know scientifically to human health. And this is so important. I want you to know that we as a Science Advisory Board keep in touch all the time, and we're constantly paying attention to what is the latest science and how can we turn that into the best product. Now, we also, in taking this information from science, we work with UNICITY to make a product that is unlike any other. These are formulas that are just within UNICITY. And this is why UNICITY products can be not only patented, but also so relevant and healthy that physicians can use them in their clinical practice. Now, one last point about UNICITY Science is that UNICITY is so concerned with how well the products work that they want to have them tested around the world. But right now, right here, we don't necessarily care about the whole world. We only care about one part of the world. And as we start talking about India specifically, I want to focus on the two things I know as a scientist: obesity and diabetes. Worldwide, we see diabetes and obesity going up. And obesity makes diabetes worse, and diabetes makes obesity worse. They both feed on each other. And these are both relevant because both obesity and diabetes increase the risk of people dying, especially diabetes. It is one of the most common causes of death around the world. And this has not only a health cost, but an enormous financial cost. $13 billion US dollars per year are spent in India, just India, trying to fight the complications of obesity and diabetes. So when I highlight the cost, what I think is this means there is a better way to spend the money. Because if India is spending 13 billion US dollars per year, it's not helping. We're not solving the problem because the problem is getting worse everywhere. So I am in the US right now, and let's just do a comparison of what's the problem in US and what's the problem in India. So in the US, of course, lots of obesity, lots of diabetes. But in India, it's not so much diabetes, less than in US. I mean, sorry, obesity, not so much obesity, but still very, very bad diabetes. So if we were to look at a US, look at Americans, we would see lots of obesity and lots of diabetes. But in India, not as much obesity, but we would be tricked because we would say, oh, less obesity, that means less diabetes. But no, still very, very high diabetes. So let's compare. In the US, obesity and diabetes are matched, sort of 1-to-1. But in India, it's almost, if you take a person in India and a person in America, and they're both the same fatness, the person in India is almost 3 times more likely to have diabetes than the American. So this is so important to understand, because in India, the body fat that someone has is hurting them more than the person in America. And even within the next 10 years, the problem will keep getting worse. In US, the problem will get worse by 33%, more diabetes in just 10 years. But in India, do you think it will be better? No, in India, it will be almost twice, or more than twice as bad. 71% increase in diabetes in just 10 years. This, of course, is an enormous problem, but it means that there is enormous potential for solution. Now, diabetes and obesity together, they both are connected through one single hormone called insulin. And in fact, in a little child, if a child has very high levels of insulin, when the child grows to become an adult, the child is 36 times more likely to be obese than a child who has low levels of insulin. So if we look at insulin levels in the average American and the Indian, we start to also get worried for India. In America, the average insulin level is 9 units. But in India, the average is 17. So hopefully I'm scaring you a little bit, but I also want you to be thinking opportunity, because the problem keeps getting worse, and the conventional way of trying to address the problem is not helping. But the problem is so much worse than just diabetes and obesity. We also have heart disease and certain types of cancer, and we have Alzheimer's disease and other brain diseases, and also even certain types of infertility and fatty liver disease. All of these diseases are metabolic problems. And so I want you to know, the problem here is too much insulin. Yeah, so if too much insulin is the problem, then the solution is to bring insulin back down. So how can we do that? To understand how we can lower insulin, let's look at the foods we eat and the 3 parts of food: fat, protein, and carbohydrate. When someone eats pure carbohydrate like rice, insulin goes very high, 10 times high, and it can stay high for 4 hours. When someone eats pure protein, insulin can go up a bit. There can be a modest insulin increase. But when someone eats pure fat, then there is little or no insulin increase. Now, unfortunately, most carbohydrates that people eat are very refined, very fake foods, foods from packages. But of course, if someone is focusing on fruits and vegetables, then even though those are carbohydrates, the insulin response is much lower. So when UNICITY could see the problem, UNICITY could see that too much insulin is the problem, then UNICITY came to the Science Advisory Board and said, how can we make a solution? So the Science Advisory Board came up with the nutrition principles as we have here: control carbohydrates, prioritize protein, fuel with fat, and only eat certain times of day. Now, these ideas aren't completely new to UNICITY. UNICITY has, in India, we have a wonderful fiber product which helps to already control carbohydrates. And we also have Lean Complete, which has not only fiber to help control carbohydrates, but also has very high quality protein. But you can see that there is one part that is missing. Well, not anymore. Now we focus on all three. And it is my great pleasure to introduce and discuss LC Base. LC Base is made up of natural fats, and it has the highest quality protein, like Lean Complete, that you can possibly get. And it is a full meal replacement. It is meant to have enough nutrition that you can have it replace a whole meal. And it is so important for me to mention that it has all of the essential fats and all of the essential amino acids from protein. And one very interesting thing about LC Base is the balance of fat and protein. Having fat in LC Base actually helps the protein work better than just pure protein alone. Now, it's also meant to be a base or a foundation, the bottom of a building. In India, you will have different products than the ones I'm showing here, but we built LC Base to be mixed with other products. Even with the LiFiber and Lean Complete that I showed earlier, those can be added as well. So I hope that you will be like a scientist and experiment with the flavors and the mixes. Now, how could someone use LC Base? So this is in someone's day. This is an average day where a person eats mostly rice or carbohydrates at every meal, and insulin is high all day long. Okay, now this living when insulin is high all the time, remember, that's the problem. So the typical way of eating is increasing insulin all the time, and that is pushing all these diseases, obesity and diabetes and more. Now, the solution, of course, is that so what is the solution? If insulin's too high all the time, what can we do? Well, we have to change nutrition. So if this person made one decision and they said, I will change my breakfast, and rather than focus on carbohydrates, I will focus on fat and protein. And if they do this, then when they wake up in the morning, insulin stays low, and then it only goes up at lunch and dinner. So just one change has helped them keep their insulin much lower for the day. And then perhaps the person wants to even lower insulin more, and they change even one more meal in the day. And of course, an easy, a convenient and very effective way to do this is LC Base. And that is my talk. I am so grateful for you listening. I hope that you have been able to learn more about metabolic health and what you can do about it. To me, the most important thing for you to learn is from a scientist. Why would UNICITY want a scientist to come and speak to you? It is so that you can understand the problem with metabolic health and then know what to do about it. Bikash, thank you for the translation.
Appreciate, Doc. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time.